love! Today we're going to be making a simple tres leches cake, which is absolutely divine. A fluffy sponge cake soaked in 3 types of milk and topped with light whipped cream. This cake is one of my personal favorites and perfect for the summertime. So let's get started. In a small bowl, add 1 cup of all-purpose flour. And to our flour, add in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and then mix together with a fork and set aside for just a moment. Take a medium-sized bowl and sift the cornstarch and flour mixture 2 times. This will prevent the cake from becoming heavy and dense, and it'll also allow our cake to have a super light and fluffy consistency that we're going after. So remember to sift it 2 times. Now add in half a teaspoon of salt and 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Then mix it all up and set aside for later. Moving on to the eggs, crack and separate 5 eggs. I know that seems like a lot, but that's how many we need for this cake to be as airy and fluffy as we can get. So just separate all 5 of these eggs and make sure that you don't get any of the yolk into the whites, because we will be making a meringue and even the smallest bit of yolk could potentially ruin your meringue. If you do happen to get any of the yolk inside, don't worry about it, just try your best to get it out, and the best way to get your yolk out is by taking a damp towel, putting it into the egg whites, and your yolk should stick right to it and it'll come right out. You will be working with the egg yolks first, so just set the whites aside for later. So just take the bowl with the egg yolks in them and whip them up using a whisk or an electric mixer. Now take half a cup of granulated sugar and whisk once again. Then gonna add in half a teaspoon of vanilla extract and 1/3 cup of milk, and then whisk again until the mixture is foamy with lots of bubbles. So it should look something like this when we're done. Now add in the dry ingredients and use a spatula or a wooden spoon to fold the ingredients together. Make sure to fold instead of mix, or else you'll get a tough cake, which is not what we're going for. And this is what it should look like once our ingredients have been incorporated. In a separate large bowl, use a whisk or an electric mixer to whip up the egg whites. And once you've created some bubbles, add in a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, and then beat these eggs up again until they've reached soft peaks. And they should look a little bit like this. Once that's done, pour in the other mixture into the meringues and then fold together using a spatula or a wooden spoon. Make sure not to be aggressive, so be really careful and gentle, because we don't want to beat out any of the air that we just incorporated with the egg whites. And I like to add in half the batter at a time because I don't want to deflate the cake batter that we made. Take your baking dish and grease with a little bit of butter or oil. I'm also going to be lining the pan with some parchment paper to make it easier to remove the cake from the pan, but if you're planning on serving the cake in the pan itself, don't worry about this step. Pour the cake batter into a pan and then bake this off at 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius for about 30 to 40 minutes. Insert a toothpick or a fork in the center of the cake, and if it comes out clean, then your cake should be cooked completely. Set aside and cool. While our cake is cooling, we're going to be making our milk mixture. Take a small bowl and add in a 12-ounce can of evaporated milk, and to that add in a 14-ounce can of sweetened condensed milk. If you don't have either of these milks in your pantry, don't worry, because I will be posting the links for the recipes in the description box below, so make sure to check that out. Finally, add a 1/4 cup of heavy whipping cream and mix these 3 milks together. Once that's done, chill in the fridge until your cake has cooled completely. And once your cake is cool, poke several holes everywhere on the cake. You could either use a toothpick or you could use a fork, whichever one that you prefer to use. Just make sure that you poke as many holes as you can, because that will allow the milk to completely soak in. Take the milk mixture and pour it all over the cake evenly. I know it might seem like a lot of milk, but trust me, your cake needs it and it will absorb all of it. You can pour it all at once if you'd like, or you could pour half the mixture, wait for it to soak up, and then pour in the rest, which is what I like to do. Now wrap the cake with plastic wrap and chill for at least an hour, but preferably overnight. Now that my cake has been chilled for around 8 hours, we can move on to our whipped topping. In a large bowl, add in 1 1/4 cup of cold, heavy whipping cream and 2 tablespoons of granulated sugar. Then use a whisk or an electric mixer and beat the cream until it reaches stiff peaks. And this is what it should look like at the end. Take your cake and with the help of a spatula, place an even layer of the cream on top. Use a knife to trim the edges of the cake. This is completely optional, but if you're planning on serving this to other people, I would recommend this step. However, you can definitely eat these scraps because they will taste just as delicious. And once you're done with that, cut the cake into however many slices you want. And that is it for this week's recipe. This cake is absolute perfection, so make sure to give it a try. I'll see you guys soon. Bye!